Oh, Dave Rubin. I can see your brain is still in recovery mode after all these years. For as much as Dave tries to boast about how the right is more tolerant than the left, you might have noticed that recently he's been getting more flack than usual from right-wingers, and that's because he and his husband announced that they are having kids. Now, whether you think we should point and laugh at the consequences of Rubin pandering to the right, or if you think we should sympathize with him for being a victim of homophobia, I'm ultimately more interested in the anti-same-sex adoption arguments right-wingers often make. Is there any legitimacy to their points that kids need two parents of the opposite sex, and that kids of same-sex parents fare worse in comparison? To keep things short and simple, I'm going to focus mainly on just 3 papers on the topic. The first is a summary of the literature by scientists at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute, which is just 2 pages long, so everyone should have the time and attention span necessary to read it. Probably. In it, they point out that several meta-analyses of dozens of studies have found that children of same-sex parents fare just as well as children of opposite-sex parents. So, destroyed with facts and logic, I guess. Though there is one study they point out that homophobes like to cite in order to support their views, this being the infamous Ragnaros study. In it, Mark Ragnaros, a Christian conservative, analyzed the data of about 3,000 adults, 175 of whom reported that their mother had a same-sex relationship, and 73 of whom reported that their father had a same-sex relationship. Now, the more astute among you might notice that one of my parents had a same-sex relationship is not the same as I grew up with same-sex parents. Indeed, this study doesn't actually help answer the question of whether same-sex couples are worse parents. This is a problem that the American Medical Association pointed out in their review of the study, and something Mark Ragnaros briefly recognizes, but hand waves away. If a homophobe ever points to this study, you can laugh at them and explain why it's hot garbage. Though I think it's worth pointing out that, as they explain in the aforementioned review, when other scientists reanalyzed the data taking into account these shortcomings, they found that children of same-sex couples differed in only 4 of the variables, compared to 24 in the original study, and 2 of these actually pertain to sexuality, not the child actually having worse outcomes. Finally, I'd like to point out that there's actually some evidence for the opposite conclusion, that children of same-sex parents may actually have better outcomes than children of opposite-sex couples. In the review, they also mention another meta-analysis, which found that children of same-sex parents fare just as well in social and educational outcomes, and that they had better psychological adjustment and greater open-mindedness. Finally, in a more recent study analyzing the academic performance of more than 1.4 million children, 3,006 of whom lived with same-sex parents, they actually found that the kids of gay couples performed better academically both before and after adding relevant control variables. Of course, both of these studies also have their limitations, so it's not like they alone settled the debate in favor of same-sex parenting. Nonetheless, it should be pretty clear that no credible studies support the assertion that gay parents are worse. So while homophobes may hate Dave Rubin and fearmonger about him having kids, he'll probably be an okay parent.